right, well, 2 weeks ago, we talked about Esther. We're in the story of Esther. Let me give you a quick recap. For those of you that are new tonight, I want to give you a recap of this story so that you understand what's going on. So basically, you have this king named King Xerxes, who was king of over all of this area called Persia. And so he's the king there, and all of a sudden, he's having this big party. He had a party that lasted 6 months. 6-month party, best of the best, everyone could be there. Well, him and his friends got really, really drunk one night, and he ordered his wife to come before him, and it wasn't a good thing. It was actually a very bad thing, and his wife said no. So in his drunkenness and in his anger, he banished his wife, so she could never be in his presence ever again. And so what ended up happening is she was never allowed or never heard from ever again. So that left the whole kingdom of Persia without a queen. Well, the best way they thought, best way to figure this out or to get a queen is to throw a beauty pageant. And we talked about how this was like The Bachelor or Bachelorette, whatever you want to watch, like the first show that ever happened, this was it. This was how this all happened. He was just going to pick the most beautiful woman in the land that he could find. And here we have this character that comes into play, who's the character of the story that we're focusing in on, is Esther. She's this young girl that is taken from her home. She's living with her cousin named Mordecai, and then she is taken from her home, and she's forced to compete in this beauty contest, but she ends up winning the favor of the king. He falls in love with her, and she becomes the queen of all the land. But here's the sidebar. The sidebar is there is a man who is about to be introduced into this story that is known as the bad guy. And so we're going to talk a little bit about this bad guy tonight. There's the bad guy that is in every story that we read. There's always a good guy and there's a bad guy, or there's a bad presence. And the bad guy we're going to talk about tonight, this dude was bad. I mean, this dude was straight up completely evil. And his name is Haman. And we're going to talk a little bit about why he was so evil and why he was so bad. Because there's something about him that isn't right. Something about his heart, his nature, his being that isn't right. And so when we left off, they had just gotten married. It was just a beautiful celebration. But if you remember, there was a plot to kill the king. But Mordecai saved the king because he found out about that. And he went and told them. But Mordecai was never celebrated. He never got a reward for saving the king. Nothing ever happened. So here we pick up this story in Esther chapter 3, verses 1 through 6. Now sometime King Xerxes promoted Haman, son of Hammedatha the Agagite, making him the highest ranking official in the government. All the king's servants at the king's gate honored him by bowing down and kneeling before him, because that's what the king commanded, except Mordecai. When Haman saw this for himself, Mordecai didn't bow down and kneel before him. He was outraged. Having learned that Mordecai was a Jew, Haman hated to waste his fury and anger on just one Jew, so he looked for a way to eliminate all of them, not just Mordecai. He wanted to eliminate the Jews throughout the whole entire kingdom of King Xerxes. So my question to you is, have you ever met someone or encountered someone in your life that really, 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 they just absolutely really like themselves? You know what I'm talking about? Like that one person that is all, like some of you are pointing fingers at yourself. You're like, yeah, it's me. I'm awesome. I'm just so great. Like, think about it. There's this one person in this story who is all about themselves. And if we can find someone in this story that it's about Haman. Haman is all about himself. He thinks that he's the best. He thinks that he's awesome. He actually thinks that people should be bowing down to him all of the time. I don't know if you have any friends that are like that just think that they are it, that everyone should like do everything that they say whenever they say it. And if you have friends like that, I would probably recommend that you might get new friends, because that's not how we don't want to be around those type of people. But Haman's ego was so big and so huge that he thought he was just as important as the king. So he made this proclamation that anytime he would go out into the city, people would have to stop what they're doing, acknowledge him, bow down and worship him. But there was one guy who said, I'm not doing that. And this guy's name was Mordecai. And see, what you got to understand is there's this guy who's saying that everyone needs to do this, and Mordecai's saying, I don't need to bow down to you. I don't need to give you what you want. I don't need to do this. And we're not exactly told why Mordecai didn't want to bow down, but all we know is that he didn't. He refused to. And it might have been because Mordecai was a Jew, and he knew that Haman's family and his lineage were not Jews, and he just knew that he maybe shouldn't have. But this guy Haman thought that he was special. How many of you think that you're special? How many think you're, not that type of special. I'm talking about the other type of special. You know, like he thought he was really, really special. And so he's like, you know what? So this guy's not going to bow down to me, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to kill him. But I'm not only going to kill him, I'm going to kill his family. And not only am I going to kill his family, I'm actually going to murder his entire race. I'm going to destroy all of the Jewish people. So you have to understand the Jewish people are actually God's chosen people. And all throughout history, people have been trying to eliminate God's chosen people. And so this is where it starts. We see this here where Haman's like, I'm going to kill everybody. And so Mordecai is there. Everyone's bowing down but Mordecai. Mordecai's like, I'm not doing it. Have you ever been in a group setting and everybody starts doing something and you don't do it and you feel kind of awkward? You're like, everybody's doing that one thing and you're like, yeah, I'm not doing that. And it kind of makes you stand out, and you kind of stand out by yourself and you stand alone. And sometimes it's not easy to stand alone. Standing alone sometimes has consequences. Standing alone will make you stand out where everybody is focusing in on you being the one that is not doing what everyone else is doing. And so we have to understand that standing alone will make you feel like no one is here. Standing alone is very hard. But the one thing that we learn about Mordecai in this story is that he had character and integrity to stand alone because he refused to do what was wrong. And can I tell you about this? I want you guys to understand this, because if you catch this at your age, you're going to go really a lot farther than I did. But your integrity is more important than people's opinion about you. Your integrity of who you are as a person is so much more important than what people think about you. Because it's so funny, because we have this mindset, and a lot of us are like this. We're like, you know what? I don't really care what people think about me. But if we're really honest, we really do care what people think. We're like, no, I really don't care what anyone thinks about me. Yes, you do. We all care about what people think about us. And we all have this mindset where I don't want people to think bad about me. I don't want people to think I'm weird. I don't want people to think this. We all have this where we worry about what people think. But can I tell you, who you are as a person and your integrity and character of you is so much more important than what people think about you. You need to keep who you are. And that's where Mordecai was. Mordecai's like, I'm going to be who I am, and I'm not going to be anything else. And so we have to understand that, like, there's two things that are going on in this story. So you have Mordecai who's saying, you know what, listen, I'm not going to do this. But then you have Haman who's saying, listen, you need to do this. And I'm just going to be honest with you tonight. I'm just going to be totally honest. Sometimes things have happened in my life that I've been involved with where someone has done something to me or at me or to someone close to me, and I have to admit, like, I may have wished bad things on someone at some point. Like when I was driving and someone cuts me off in traffic, I may have hoped like that they fly into the wall, you know, or like someone is walking too slow in front of me, I may have wished that they tripped over their own feet and fallen and bust their face. Like, these are things, I'm just being honest with you. Like, there are times in my life where stuff happens where I'm like, you know, I hope you get yours. Like, I hope something bad happens to you. And I hate saying that, but I have this problem where I like to be right. I don't like to be wrong. I have this problem where I think that things a lot of the time should be about me and nobody else. And I have this problem sometimes where what I want is so much more important than what everyone else wants. And sometimes I live that way. And sometimes it causes conflict with people, because if I want what I want, then what you want doesn't really matter, because what I want is so much more important than what you want. I'm just being honest. And if we're real with each other, we could say, you know what, I think that way too, that sometimes my desire is what I want, wanting to be the best, wanting to always win, wanting to always be right, wanting to always be the one that's the center of attention, wanting it to be all about me is what we think of. It's how we act. When someone cuts me off in traffic and speeds down the road, I want them to get in trouble. When someone is cheating at something, I want them to get caught. When a person makes fun of someone, I want them to get a beat down. When I don't like the way someone is, I hope that they get theirs. And it's like your brother or sister. Perfect example. When you got in trouble and then they did the same thing and they didn't get in trouble, you got mad that they didn't get in trouble, but you got in trouble. And there's things that go on, like there's me and my older sister, and then I have a little sister and a little brother, and things my older sister and I, if we would have done what my little brother and sister have done, we would have gotten in so much trouble, but then they don't get in trouble for the things that they do. And I'm like, this makes no sense. No sense. I'm like, you should be getting in trouble. I wish you would get in trouble. And it's these things where we kind of wish things upon people sometimes, because sometimes, if I can just be honest, sometimes I think we're a little more like Haman than we are like Mordecai. Sometimes I think it's more easy to focus on us than other people. Sometimes what we want is more important at a moment than what other people want. And can I just tell you this? That pride can make the most beautiful person ugly. It doesn't matter how beautiful you think you are as a person. Pride can make the most beautiful person that's in the room completely ugly. And we have to have that understanding that pride is not, no one really likes a bragger. No one really likes someone that's prideful. No one really likes someone that's all about themselves. And so we have to be careful with this, that we're not prideful people, but we're humble people. So first of all, you have Haman, who gets all upset and mad because Mordecai is not bowing down to him. So he decides that I'm going to kill him. I'm going to kill his family. You know what? I'm just going to kill all of his people. And we thought that was bad. Then check what he does next. Haman then spoke to the king. He said, there's an odd set of people scattered around your province of your kingdom who they really don't fit in. Their customs are different than everybody else. Worse, they totally disregard the king's laws. They're an affront. The king shouldn't put up with them. If it pleases the king, let orders be given that they will be completely destroyed. I'll pay for it myself. I will deposit 375 tons of silver into the royal bank to finance the operation. So it says, then the king slipped off his signet ring and gave it to Haman and said, go ahead. It's your money. Do whatever you want. So not only did he declare this rule to say, you know what, I'm going to wipe out all these people, he actually lies to the king and says, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to operate. I am going to totally do this in a way that it should happen the way that I want it to. And what I'm going to do is I'm even going to finance it, and I'm even going to do it. But I'm going to tell the king that these people are actually the bad people in his kingdom. But what we have to understand, the Jews were living amongst the Persian people doing nothing wrong. But just because Mordecai didn't like him, he started spreading rumors. He'd be like, man, I'll tell you about these Jews. King, these Jews, they are bad news. These are bad people. You should not be involved with them. These are bad people. Has anyone ever said anything bad about you that wasn't true before? Has anyone ever spread lies about you that wasn't true before? Well, just imagine if the lies that they were spreading about you wasn't about your reputation, was about your life. Whether or not you were going to live or you were going to die. And this is what Haman continually did. It says the king actually gave him his ring off of his finger to make it official. And then it says that the king and Haman sat back and had a drink while the whole city of Susa became chaotic because all of the Jewish people realized that they were going to die. So this is our introduction to Haman, the character that is in this story that we're going to learn more and more, who just when you think this dude couldn't get even more evil, he does. Just when he couldn't get even more vile, he does. And we read this and we're like, man, this guy was absolutely, this guy was a dirtbag. Straight up dirtbag. And at this point, you're like, what is going on? Again, where is God in all of this? Because remember, the book of Esther doesn't mention God once. But a lot of times, God is working behind the scenes and doing things that we can't see. But now here we have a big problem. All of the Jewish people are about to be wiped out. Mordecai and all these innocent people are going to be killed. Why? Because one man decided that this was not good. And it made me think about these things, how we live in a society where we see on the news everywhere where prejudice is going on, where people will hate people because of their skin color, people will hate people because of their lifestyle, people will hate people because of where they come from, people will hate people because they have money, people will hate people because they don't have money. And there's all of this prejudice that goes around, but can I tell you that prejudice is always based on lies? Being prejudiced is always based on lies. It says that one person is more valuable than another based on race, culture, background, or wherever they live. The truth is this: as Christians, we need to have an understanding that every single person is valuable to God. And if every single person of every race, of every demographic, of every place they live in the world, if everyone in the world is important to God, then they should be important to us. We have to have that understanding. But the question is, do you care about the truth? Do you care that the truth is that we need to see everyone the way that God does? Do we care that our actions are affecting others, that when we decide to do something? See, Mordecai's actions affected Haman. Haman's actions basically was a greater impact and was going to affect all of the Jews. And now we caused this whole city to be confused. And this whole city got confused about what was going to happen because of the actions of these people. But yet when we read it, King Xerxes and Haman said, all right, everybody's going to die. Let's go have a drink and hang out because we don't care that all these innocent people are going to die. And we kind of have the pause in the story here between Esther chapter 3 and 4 where we're like, okay, this is serious business right now. Like this is crazy because what's going to happen are all these people, when are they going to die? How are they going to die? Like what's going to happen? What's going to go on with this story? A few weeks ago, probably a few months ago here, a movie came out that is actually one of my, these two movies are probably two of my favorite movies. How many of you have ever seen Wreck-It Ralph? The movie Wreck-It Ralph. Okay. Well, a couple months ago, Bethany and I went with some friends of the church here, the Balzanos and the Mercers. We went and saw Wreck-It Ralph 2, the second one. And we went on a night. It was like pouring down rain. It was kind of terrible out. So we're like, all right, let's go see a movie. So we all went to go see this movie together. And Pastor Jim brought his daughter and his son-in-law and the kids and everything like that. And so his grandkids were there. And we go to the movie theater and we start Wreck-It Ralph 2, and if you've not seen Wreck-It Ralph 2, it's amazing. You need to see it. I love it. So we're watching Wreck-It Ralph 2, and there's this one scene where all of the video game people are hanging out in the little area, and this new video game, this new thing comes in, and it's called Wi-Fi, or as we know it as, Wi-Fi. But Wi-Fi is this new video game, and they're like, what is this Wi-Fi? What is this Wi-Fi? And there's all this commotion going on. And all of a sudden, we're sitting there, and it's Bethany and I, and then Carson, who is Pastor Jim's granddaughter, she's sitting right next to me. She's my little partner in crime. We have fun together. We hang out, and we're sitting there. And all of a sudden, it's a very intense part of this movie where all this stuff is, going on. And I'm like, man, there's these loud noises. There's the alarms. There's all this. I'm like, this is so real. This is crazy. How did they make a movie so loud and so real? And then it dawned on me that it was actually the alarms in the building that was going off. The fire alarms were going off because somewhere someone burnt the popcorn, and all of a sudden all these alarms are going off. All this chaos. We would leave the theater. We had to go sit out there. We're standing out in the pouring down rain, wondering if we can go in. The fire department is running around trying to figure out what's going on. We're all standing there, and we're not we're all standing there, and everybody around us is oh, what's happening? What's going on? That's my other people voice. And so they're all doing that, and they're all wondering, is it going to burn down? What happened? All these things. You know, all I could wonder, what happened in the movie? Can I just be honest? I'm like, what's going to happen to Ralph? All right, because Ralph's my dude. Him and Stitch are my two favorite Disney characters. I go back and forth, but I'm like, what is going to happen with Ralph? And so in my mind, I'm waiting, and I'm like, and then we just left. We couldn't go back in the movie theater. We just left. And for weeks, I was like, what is happening to Ralph? This is terrible. Is he going to make it? Is he stuck in Wi-Fi land? What is going to happen? And so there's this intensity of wondering what was going to happen in this story. And that same intensity that I have thinking about what was going to happen to Ralph is the same intensity that when we read this story of Esther, we're like, what is going to happen? What is going to go on? What is going to happen to these people? Because now you just have the king and Haman, they're hanging on the balcony, drinking some wine coolers and just discussing what's going to happen. And you have a whole city that's going crazy because they're all going to die. So what is the next step of what's going to happen? Esther chapter 4, it picks back up and it says, when Mordecai learned what had been done, the dude tore his clothes, put a sackcloth and ashes all over him, dirt all over him, went out to the city and wept and cried loudly. But he only went as far as the king's gate because no one clothed in sackcloth or with all of the dirt and all that stuff on them was allowed to enter it. Mordecai got the news that he was going to die and everybody else that he loved. Mordecai was totally upset. He was heartbroken. And back in the Bible times, back then, they didn't have a Facebook status to put up oh, I'm so sad. They weren't going to send a thing on Instagram like with a sad face and tears. Like they didn't have any of that. They didn't have a way of like showing people how upset they were. This was their way. If something terrible was about to happen, literally they would tear their clothes. They would put like a potato sack on them. They would smell dirt all over them, and they would just weep loud in the city. That sounds weird to us. If we saw that, we'd be like, okay, like go over there, I'm going over here. But that's what happened back then. That's how it would be an outward sign to say, listen, something bad is about to happen. This was a symbol to everyone in the city that something was about to go down. It was basically the alarm of the city that, hey, something is going to happen. And we can understand why he did this. We can understand, like, I would be sad. I would be terrified knowing that I was going to die. All of my loved ones were going to die. My whole generation, my family, everyone that I'm close to, my whole race, we are all about to be wiped out. We don't know when, we don't know how, but we know that it's going to happen soon. And so what ends up happening in Esther chapter 4, verses 4 through 8, Esther's maids and people that work, because remember, Esther is living it up. She's in the palace, she's the queen, but remember, she's also a Jew. She finally hears what's going on, and the queen was stunned. She sent fresh clothes to Mordecai, but he wouldn't accept them. So Esther called for one of the royal servants whom the king had assigned to wait on her and told him to go to Mordecai and get the full story of what's happening. Because he was at the gate, he was able to get connected again with Esther, and he told the servant everything, and the servant went and told Esther everything that was going to happen. Everything. Mordecai said, listen, this is what's going to happen to me. This is what's going to happen to the family. This is going to happen in the whole city. This is what's going down. But can I tell you something? That Mordecai knew that if he could get the attention of the queen, that maybe some hope was there. Knowing that, you know what, maybe there might be a glimmer of hope if this happened. And so he says, you need to do something about it. Mordecai said, listen, you need to save your people. You need to do something about it. And all of a sudden we read this, and Esther has like a panic attack. She says, you want me to do what? You want me, Esther, I'm just a girl. You want me to go to the king without him asking? Do you know what will happen? She said here, everyone who works for the king here, even the people on the providence, know that there is one single fate for every man and woman who approach the king without being invited. It's death. The only exception is that the king extends his scepter that someone might live. And Esther says, listen, it's been 30 days since I've seen my husband. So maybe she thinks that the king doesn't even love her anymore. Maybe she thinks that, you know what, maybe he's done with me. Maybe he just loved me for this time. Maybe that's it. But I've not seen him in 30 days. And Esther was a little hesitant, but it didn't mean she was a coward. She was just worried, what's going to happen to me? If I go and do this, do you realize that the king could have me killed right on the spot? So what's going to happen to me? But then Mordecai lays it out straight. So you have to understand that you need people in your life that are going to speak truth to you even when it hurts. You have to have people that are mature, that are in your life, that are going to look at you and be like, dude, like, you're wrong. This is what God says. This is what the Bible says. And here we see that Mordecai lays out the truth for her and says this: don't think just because you live in the king's house, you're the one Jew that's going to get to stay alive. If you persist in staying silent at this time, then help and deliverance will come from another place. But you and your whole family, they're going to get wiped out. Who knows? Maybe you were made to be queen for such a time as this. For such a time as this. Man, that's a powerful statement. See, Mordecai was saying to her, listen, no excuses, no easy way out. Maybe you are destined to be where you're at for this, to save your people. See, God, again, is orchestrating and putting people in positions, especially Esther, in a position that might be able to help her. And this was probably the most powerful pep talk that anyone has ever seen, anyone has ever heard, that you were made for such a time as this. I want you to think about where you're at right now in life, from the youngest to the oldest in the room. Where you're at. It doesn't matter what family you come from, it doesn't matter. But think about where you're at right now. What if God has you exactly where he wants you for such a time as this? What if God has positioned you in a place where you're able to do something that nobody else can do? And he has said, listen, I put you in this position for this time so that you could save some people, so that you could let some people know. Maybe where you sit in class, maybe where you work at, maybe the family that you're around, maybe this, maybe the sport that you're playing, maybe the people that you're connecting with on social media. What if God has just destined all of that to line up so that you could show people hope? So that you could show people who Jesus is. So that your influence that you have being a leader, or your influence that you have that everybody's looking at you, what if this is the time? What if this is the time that you are meant to do something so much more? Mordecai gave her the pep talk, and Esther's like, all right, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go before the king, and I'm gonna try this. But understand these things. I don't have these on the screen, but I want to tell you real quick these 5 things, because this is what Esther was up against. Number 1, to speak to the king, Esther would break the law because the king speaks to you first, so you don't speak to the king. So number 1, she could break the law and be killed. Number 2, to make her appeal to the king, Esther has to confess that she's a Jew, and she's not told him that yet. So she's hiding a secret. And so if she goes to him, number 1, she can be killed just by approaching him. Number 2, because she has a secret. And then the third thing is Esther must attempt to convince the king to reverse a law that cannot be reversed. The fourth thing is Esther then must go against Haman, who is the king's right-hand person. The second most powerful person in the kingdom she must go against. And not only that, Esther must pursue a plan which would ultimately take a strike at the king's pride. And it's not a smart thing to do to a king that's prideful. So she has all of these things stacked up against her, but she says, you know what? I am gonna do this. I'm gonna make it happen. I'm gonna attempt to do this the best I can. So she gets ready. And the Bible's really cool about this, that it gives us the details of preparation for her to do this. Esther chapter 5, it says, now it happened on the 3rd day that Esther put on her royal robe. She stood in the court of the king's palace across from his house, while the king sat on his throne in royal honor. With where he was, he faced the entrance of the house. So we see something interesting. It says that she put on her royal robe. And I read that, I'm thinking, man, can you imagine the process of doing this? What am I gonna wear? If I wear this outfit, this is gonna be the last outfit that I might ever wear. What am I gonna say? Because if I don't say the right words correctly, it might be the last thing that I ever say. If I don't look exactly the way that I should to get his attention, then I'm done. That's it. So think about this. You ever getting nervous, maybe going to prom or going to homecoming, you're getting ready and you're a little nervous? Imagine how it would be if this was a life or death situation. Imagine how you want to make sure that you look the best that you have ever looked in your entire life. Because your outfit, your attitude, how you present yourself, everything about you at this moment is about life or death. It's about whether or not you will save everyone or you will die instantly. This is probably the scariest moment in Esther's life. She probably is never gonna have a defining moment like this ever again. So it was when the king saw Esther standing in the court that she found favor in his sight. And the king held out his scepter in his hand, and Esther touched the top of the scepter, for now she could live. Part 1, we're good. So part 1, a mission accomplished. Part 1, she's alive. The first part of the mission is complete. She's good. She was bold. She did what she needed to do, because this is a pivotal point in the story. Now that the threat of death had evaporated, now we have to move on to the next thing. The next thing being, I have to save my people. My life was saved. Now I got to save the people that are out there. How am I going to do this? Esther was the Jews' only hope. Their only hope. You don't talk about pressure. Imagine that you're not just you and your family, but your whole line of people. Everyone that you know that you're close with, everyone that's connected to you, imagine if everything rode on you. The pressure of having a whole entire existence of a group of people on your back. And this was Esther. But remember, Esther was a teenager just like you. Esther was young. This wasn't some old experienced queen who's been doing this a long time. This is a young girl who's dealing with the pressures of all of this. No other Jew had access to the king like she did. Now that Esther lived going before the king, she could deliver the plea to save the people. And this is what she does. So Esther answered, "If it pleases the king, let the king and Haman come today to a banquet that I have prepared for him." Then the king said, "Bring Haman quickly, that he might do as Esther did." Okay. You ever read a book or you watch a movie and the character does something and as soon as they do it, you're like, "You're dumb. Like, that was stupid." Okay, let me just explain to you my mindset here. You went through all of this craziness. You had to get yourself together. You had a life or death moment. The king extended it. You're able to live, and you ask him to go get some food. What, like, are you serious right now? You had the moment, like the moment was there to say, "Hey, save my family, save my people, save everybody." And all you said is, "Hey, I made some dinner, let's go chow. Let's go eat." Your whole freaking family, everyone that you know, their life is on the line and you want to go eat. What is wrong with you? And I read this and I'm thinking, what is wrong with you? Like what are you doing? And when I'm reading this, I'm thinking, she's dumb. She's dumb. And I'm reading this, I'm thinking like, what in the world is going on? And as I'm reading this and I began to study a little bit more, I found this out. That culturally back then, she knows it was rude to ask for anything straight out without honoring the king for who he was first. So there was something to said about, she knew the protocol. She was smart enough to pay attention to say, I can't just ask him flat out. I have to do something different. And so the king and Haman went to the banquet. And it's crazy because she just didn't invite the king. She also invited the dirtbag. It's like, y'all have that one, like when you're dating and you have that one friend that your girlfriend doesn't like. And, we're not going to go there. But the dirtbag got invited to dinner with the king. And so she invited him to go along with it, and they both said, "Yes, let's go eat." So Esther risked her whole life at that moment, but was smart enough to realize that I can't just ask him straight up. I need to honor him first. And I began to think about that, like, man, there's something to say about that, about honoring who someone is before asking of something. But it goes back to everyone has a defining moment in their lives. What will you do with yours? Whether you have had it yet or not, there's going to come a time in your life where you will have to make a decision that will define who you are. And see, we live in a society that we can actually see people that have done so much good for such a long time, and then one decision they make can topple everything. We've seen people, though, who on the reverse have been wrong and been bad and have made horrible decisions, but then they start making right decisions and they've been successful and they have made it. Why? Because they chose to be smart during a defining moment. Students, listen to me. I want you to hear me clearly tonight. Every one of you will have a defining moment. What will you do with it? What will you do with the opportunity that is going to define who you are for the rest of your life, for everyone to know? I know this, that when you decide to follow after Jesus, that is one of the most defining moments that you will ever have. A defining moment to say yes to Jesus will change your entire existence. It will change everything for you. It's a defining moment. But what will you do when you have to make a choice between right and wrong? What will you do when you have to make a choice that can ultimately define who you will be for your entire existence? Understand that defining moments are difficult moments, because defining moments sometimes may have a consequence or may have an action that go with it. Defining moments are things that, right or wrong, no matter what you choose, there's an outcome to your decisions, and defining moments will show you that sometimes you will choose to do something, right or wrong, and it's gonna have an action or a consequence to go along with it. Also understand that defining moments will ultimately tell you who is with you and who is against you. I mean, very simply, we can just, people are going to be against people because people have opinions. If I asked right now, how many of you think chocolate is better than vanilla? Some of you would be like, yeah, chocolate. Some of you would be like, yeah, vanilla. And then some random dude in the back, like, strawberry. And we'd say, shut up. And everybody would start fighting. Why? Because we are always going to have a mindset that is going to go back and forth because of opinions. But what you have to understand is when you have a defining moment and you make a decision, you will find that there are those that are with you and there are those that are against you. So what will you do with your defining moment? Because ultimately, a defining moment will define who you are as a person. Guys, we live in a society where there is so much craziness going on. So much bullying. So much hurt. So much pain. So much drug use. So much addiction. So much sin and so many bad things that are going on. What will you do that will define you to not take a part in all of that? What will you do that will define you as a Christian? Have you done anything yet to define yourself as a Christian? Are you going to be just like everyone else is? Are you going to act the way that everyone else acts? Are you going to do what everyone else does? Or are you going to have a defining moment where you stand up and say, no, that is wrong. I choose to do what is right. Defining moments are very important, and we have to learn how to navigate those. Jeffrey, if you could come. Defining moments are one of those things that we have to understand that we have to prepare for, and you want to make sure that you're getting ready and that you're constantly, your mind's in the right place, that your heart is in the right place, because when you go to make a decision, whatever it might be, you want to make sure it's the right decision. You want to make sure that you follow through with it, because there could be decisions that you have to make tonight that can define you. There's decisions that you might have to make in a couple of months after you graduate from high school that will define you. There's going to be decisions that you're going to have to make down the road when you're looking at that person you love and you're debating whether or not you're going to marry them that will define you. There's going to be a time when you're offered a job and you could say yes or no and it's going to define you. Guys, understand this, that you can be prepared for these things by staying connected to God. That as we stay connected to God, it helps us learn how to figure all this out and to work through the confusion so that when our defining moment happens, we know what to do. I believe in your generation. These leaders that are in this room, they believe in you. Ryan and I were just gone last week, and we were with a group of pastors from all over the United States that believe in teenagers. I believe that you're going to make it. I believe that you can accomplish things. I believe that you can. But what you need to believe is that you need to believe that when you face the defining moment, that you can make the right decision, that you can do the right thing. So tonight, across this room, just do me a favor, bow your heads and close your eyes for a moment. Please, I don't want anyone looking around. I don't want anyone talking. Just let's have a respect just for a few moments. Because I believe that tonight, on April 3rd, at 8:21, right now, that we can have a defining moment. Because this is what I believe. I believe some of you are sitting in your seats tonight and you have said that you love Jesus. You've said that you wanted to follow after him. You said that you were a Christian, but it wasn't a defining moment. It was just a moment. It was just a moment that you believed you just got caught up in and you just said yes because everybody else said yes. My best friend said yes. My boyfriend said yes. My girlfriend said yes. Whatever it might be. But tonight, I want to ask you, if you want a defining moment to say yes to Jesus, will you? And will you say it for yourself? Will you say it for who you are, not for in seriousness, in all reality, saying, you know what, I'm just, this life is difficult, things aren't going the way that I need to, and I want to do the right thing, so I need a defining moment. So will you say yes to following after God with your whole heart? Will you accept Jesus into your life and let that be a defining moment? So with all heads bowed and eyes closed, listen, you might have asked Jesus to come into your heart 500 times, 5 times, or no times. It doesn't matter. What matters is the sincerity of your heart, the importance of the heart, the defining moment of the heart. So if you're here tonight and you could say, I want tonight to be a defining moment, and I want Jesus to be the Lord of my life. I want to serve God with my life, and I want to do the right thing. I want you to lift your hand right now. If you want it to be a defining moment for you, I want you to lift your hand. No games, no playing around, but this is a defining moment. Don't be ashamed of it. Lift your hand up. Don't get it's either up or down. There's no halfway. You want it to be a defining moment for you. Hands across this whole entire room. Now I'm going to ask you to do something a little bit more brave. If you say that tonight, I lifted my hand and that's my defining moment, now what I want you to do is I want you to stand up right where you're at. Right now, go ahead, stand up. If you are saying, listen, I want this to be real, stand up. It's not something to be ashamed about. You really want to follow after God, you really want to make the decision, you stand. And it's so awesome. Still with heads bowed and eyes closed. Leaders, I want you just to find a student that is around your vicinity, 1 or 2, and just lay your hands on them and encourage them. All right, just real quick, just find someone that's around you. Some over here, if I get some leaders over here to my right, your left. Students with your heads bowed, eyes closed. Sometimes it's easy to stand, sometimes it's hard, but knowing that people are there to stand with you and to be with you, that's what it's about. That's what it's about. So students, tonight I'm going to pray, and I want you to walk with me through this prayer. I want you to say it, and I want you to mean it with your heart, because it's a defining moment. Now is a defining moment that we choose to say, yes, I am going to do this. I'm not going to keep playing games. I'm not going to do things the way I've always done them, but I'm going to really do this. So as I pray this tonight, I want you to repeat after me. Dear God, I'm here tonight for my defining moment. I ask that you'll forgive me for the things that I've done. The bad things, the wrong things, the things against people that have hurt them. God, I love you. I want to live for you, and I want to do what is right. I'm done playing games. I'm for real, because you are real. So God, help me to have the strength. Help me to have the wisdom to live this out for the rest of my life. God, tonight, that's our prayer, that we can live this out for the rest of our life, that this will be something that we continue on, that we press through, that we work through. God, I thank you for each and every student that raised their hands and for the ones that didn't. I thank you for the ones that are standing and the ones that didn't. God, this is a defining moment tonight, on this night, of what you can do through our hearts and through our lives, and we thank you for that. God, I pray that this will be a message that goes with us, it changes us, it challenges us, it renews us. And that God, that you have given us a moment for such a time as this to live the way that we need to, the way that we should, to live for you each and every day. And God, I thank you for these things. In Jesus' name, and everybody said, amen. Guys that stood up, I want you to look at me real quick. Look at me real quick. Let me tell you something about moments. We have a lot of them. We have a lot of moments that come into our life and go out of our life. We have moments that are good, that are bad. We have moments that are filled with joy, and we have moments that are filled with pain. But what's cool about this defining moment that you have tonight is this defining moment is a moment that actually lasts eternity. It's a defining moment that says, I will do this for the rest of my life. That's the cool thing about this defining moment, is that you get to hold on to this for infinity and beyond. I had to, it's just who I am, you know? But that's what's cool about this, is that we're in this defining moment for the rest of our lives. But not just that, is that we are all in this together. No man left behind, no girl left behind. I don't care if you're brand new, I don't care if you've been here forever, like Akil. It doesn't matter to me. We're in this together. And we take this journey to find and discover what God has for us. And we use these defining moments that God has to bring that joy, that hope, and that peace that is there. So don't forget that this defining moment is more than just some random moment on a Wednesday, but a moment that absolutely will change the rest of your life. So Esther goes to the king and she says, hey, come to this banquet. Come eat with me. Bring Haman, the dirtbag. We're just going to call him that for the rest of the series. So the king calls for him, and they come and they go to this banquet. And then what happens is you'll find out next week. God, thank you for tonight. Thank you for these students. Thank you for what you're doing in our lives. God, I pray that you continue to allow us to fall in love with you as we learn through Esther, as we just are filled with joy and happiness. But God, as we're inspired by this story, I pray that you continue to change us, continue to challenge us, and continue to renew us in all things. In Jesus' name, and everybody said, amen. All right, I'll see you guys next week.